Welcome back to the SCIF. I'm Matt. That's Stu. This is the Green Beret Life. We want to fix some things. Last week we had a screw up. We had pretty much a blizzard up here. I'm still stuck up. It's a long story. I'm stuck up here in Wisconsin with my truck that's been at the dealership since July. That's another story, right? But anyways, we had a screw up last week, and I want to apologize for anybody that tuned in and didn't get on. We were trying to get on. We just had a mess. So that being said, we're here tonight. We appreciate you for still being here if you are here. We've never, ever claimed to be professionals, have we, Stu?
No, not even remotely.
At no time, way, shape, or form have we ever claimed to be professionals. So that's our way out. But anyways, you guys can see that I am able to broadcast from the northern compound, actually, because all the trees are off or leaves are off the trees, not trees off the leaves, right? And even though we have 1.5 feet of snow on the ground, I'm getting decent coverage now. I'm getting a decent shot to the antenna. So I have internet. Imagine that. So anyways, we've got a good show for you tonight. Stu's going to go through what we're going to discuss. And thank you again for being here.
Well, most of what we're going to be doing, it seems like most of the stories that we had pulled up over the past several days seem to be just taking a dump on Minnesota, which, you know, it is what it is. It's low-hanging fruit, easy target. There's a lot going on. They have, and I'd originally seen some of this back a year or so ago with a bunch of fraud in Minnesota with some of these Somali immigrants had set up a.
Oh wait, I'm going to correct you. I'm going to correct you right there. You said some of the Somali immigrants. Oh. Right. Well, okay, we don't. Nothing more needs to be said. But go ahead.
Well, they were basically what they were doing is they were receiving COVID funds, and they were supposed to be providing meals to school-age children. And what they found out is the list of names that they were providing of who they supposedly were providing all these meals to was literally off of the website babynames.com. Just generated lists of names. And
they were claiming, we'll talk about it when we get to the story. But yeah, there's a lot more to it. What these people did.
Yeah, this is just one of them. So this was the one I'd heard about, a year or so ago, and now there's apparently more. And they're talking about millions upon millions, possibly billions.
Possibly 10 billion total. They're saying minimum 8 billion, total 10 billion. And it's more and more looking like it was set up on purpose in order to funnel taxpayer money to the Somali community, to use the Somali community to keep the Democrats in power. That's what they did. So
you know what?
That's what it looks like.
Nothing would surprise me at this point with the nonsense that we've seen. But
we've talked about on the show the child care fraud that was identified almost 10 years ago, and they've never investigated over $100 million a year in that alone. That was 10 years ago when they first discovered it. They know what's going on, but there's more to this story. We're going to get into it when we talk about the story in detail. And
I wanted to look at this right here. There was an illegal immigrant cop that has been nabbed by ICE, has now returned to work for the Illinois Police Department. Yes. Right?
Excuse me?
Yes.
How is this happening? How can an illegal be a sworn police officer and carry a firearm? How does that happen?
Right. Exactly. So he overstayed, and again, well, we'll get into it. But yeah, it's like there's just so much of this stuff. It's like how does this stuff continue to happen? It's almost like it's a feature, not a bug, right?
Yeah, for sure.
The one story you wanted to talk about, well, we both did, But you guys all know about the strikes on the drug shipments coming out of Venezuela. Well, the Washington Post has run with a story basically accusing Pete Hegseth of ordering strikes on, I guess you would call them, after the ship is destroyed, marooned sailors, whatever you want to call it. But they were accusing him
seaman,
of that, and it's come out.
Term. Stu, the correct term is seaman.
Oh, seaman, floating seaman.
Yeah, I think you got it right there.
But it's come out that the Washington Post approached the White House about this story 3 or 4 hours before the story ran. The White House completely refuted it with, witnesses, with statements, with documentation, and the Washington Post ran the story anyway, knowing full well that it was false. So, that's the type of stuff that we're up against.
There's I want to make a quick announcement. If anybody lives in Tennessee and you're in the district for the special election tonight, there's a special election where the Democrat, first of all, it's a veteran. That's the Republican. I had the article pulled up and I freaking can't find it, of course, right now. But it's a veteran, conservative, America First dude running against a woman who's already been famous.
Get back closer to your. There you go. You got too far away from your mic. We couldn't hear you, Matt.
Okay. It's a veteran who's running against a woman who's already become YouTube famous because she was the one that was out harassing ICE officers and got thrown to the ground when she physically, attacked an ICE officer. This woman is a nut job. Her name is Behn, Behn. She's got a goofy first name, of course. She's a radical Marxist communist. She's from Knoxville originally, and she has made comments that she hates everything about Nashville that makes it an hit city. She hates Christians. She hates country music. She hates, what was she talking about? The brides down in Nashville, everything.
The food. And she was caught doing this. And then when she was confronted with, she's like, well, that was taken out of context. And it's like, you pretty much said you hate the people that you represent verbatim.
Mm-hmm.
That is the context.
But she just got elected in 23 to a House seat for the state. Now she's running for federal, and Republicans better get their ass out and vote because she's within 2 points in a conservative district, and that means Republicans are having their heads in the sand. This woman is as bad as they get. She is AOC times 10. So get your ass out there and vote for the Republican. Yeah, that was just a public service announcement.
PSA from Matt. But it really is. It is so disturbing. These in the past, these people wouldn't dare show their face in public with the nonsense that they spew, and now there's social media has made it to where all of the fringe elements can get together, and it's the people who have nothing else in their lives except for whatever whatever they're advocating for today, and they just get out there and bang the drum and scream, and and we're trying to work and pay bills and whatever, and they don't care. They just want to see it burn. And
these people have been referred to as a couple ways. Like social rejects is the first thing. You don't ever let them in power, but they're the ones that want the power, right? Some people refer to them as theater kids, right? The kind when you were in high school that were always involved in theater, all of that bullshit. The artsy fartsy kids that nobody talked to, and when they were even younger, were in the back eating glue and crayons, right? Those kids. But that's who these people are, and we're allowing them to run our country right into the ground, right off a cliff, actually. No, didn't mean to interrupt you, Stu.
No, you're good. You're good. But yeah, so that's it. Like Matt said, if people have to stay engaged, even at a minimal level, to know what's going on, to know that there's a special election, and to know what's at stake. because the margins are
Controlling
razor
the house.
thin.
Yeah.
They really are. And that, I don't know what's scarier, that the margins are so razor thin, or the fact that people just don't seem to pay attention. The fact that people can look at
one of the reasons why the margins are razor thin is somebody that we were a fan of before, Marjorie Taylor Greene in Georgia, was apparently asked not to run for Senate or the governor because she was so far behind by Trump, who told her we needed her in the House, and she lost her freaking mind and then trying to blow up America First right now as we speak. Went pro keeping illegals here, went on The View, apologized for telling the truth. The woman's a nut. And we used to be a fan of her. There were signs that something was wrong when she was going after Gates and Lauren Boebert because of McCarthy, when they were trying to get rid of that other rhino, right? So she was obviously in it for herself. She's retiring right after she gets a full pension, which is amazing. 5 years in Congress, you get a full pension. How does that work? How does that work? So healthcare and pension, that's what they get. What do you get? Screwed. You get the shaft. Yeah. Like that Jerry Reed. That Jerry, she got the gold mine. I got the shaft, right? The Jerry Reed song.
Well, what story do you want to start out with, Matt?
I don't know. You throw one out there, dude.
Here, we can start out with the Hegseth story. Let me there we go.
You know more about this than I do, because I wasn't paying attention. I saw this for what it was, a distraction away from the National Guard and the treasonous six that were out there trying to encourage the military to not follow Trump's orders, right? Well, and that thing went south on them, so they needed a distraction for this. And now when we dig into that, that's going to be attached to the next story we talk about. But with Elise Stefanik and Kelly and that whole crew, and the things that they've been saying on TV a month and a half ago up until now, this was all an operation. So, Stu, let's talk. Yeah, you get into this because you know more about this story here than I do.
So what happened with this is as you guys know, there have been strikes on these drug boats coming out of Venezuela. That's no secret. It's been doing it, and the left has been just, beside themselves, clutching pearls that we're actually doing something to try and stem the flow of narcotics into the United States.
And there's one, I'm going to interrupt. Folks, this isn't all about narcotics. It's about control over Latin America and South America and our hemisphere, and China and Iran and terrorism. It's about all of this. Okay. The drug thing is one aspect of it. But sorry, Steve.
So we all know that Hegseth, as the Secretary of War by extension, has been, green lighting these strikes and that sort of thing. Well, the Washington Post came up with a story with their normal anonymous sources close to the story, never naming a name, never telling where it came from, anonymous source with, close to the situation. And basically we're framing it that after the initial strike, Pete Hegseth is watching the monitor and seeing people swimming around in the water around the wreckage, and orders follow-on strikes at the disabled vessel and the people. I wouldn't have a
problem with that, to be honest with you. That I don't see the problem there. But go ahead, Stu.
Well, I think the problem in there comes into the maritime law, even during war, is the recovery of sailors, and just
I'm all about recovering them, dude. Pull them off the bottom of the ocean if there's anything left,
But so at any rate, that was the story the Washington Post went with. Well, they called the White House to ask about it and get some clarification, and the White House completely disproved it with witness statements, with documentation, with everything 3 or 4 hours before the Washington Post ran the story, and the Post ran it anyway, knowing it was false. And the way it played out was Hegseth authorized the strike, And then the admiral in charge ordered the follow-up strikes because the vessel wasn't destroyed in the initial strike, and the mission was to destroy the vessel. So it's completely, disconnected from what really happened. They knew what they were reporting was incorrect, and they reported it anyway because it suited the narrative. And that's what is, that's what's being taught. That's what's being shown, and you can guarantee.
There was something else that I heard, Stu.
Go ahead.
That there was a cable sent to Venezuela ahead of time, and it said traffickers will be shot, survivors shot again. So I think that covers them right there. Did you hear that?
Was it one of the did they send one of the signs from the gun store? Trespassers will be shot. If they were found in this sector of ocean tonight, they'll be found there tomorrow, maybe. Yeah,
right?
Maybe.
Depends on if there's a lot of sharks and whatnot. So
that's what's happened. Like Matt said, it's all a distraction, and they started out with this, the whole don't follow illegal orders, that whole thing, and what they make it sound like. To pivot over to that for a second, these senators and these Congress people have come out, and you guys have seen the little video where they're all, it's all
treasonous thing.
Yeah. So what they're doing, and the way I heard it expressed in this and other things, is like the Tweedledee Tweedledum, where one person will say one thing, and then the other person will say something else. And when you put them together, that's the complete message. But you can't say that person A is saying do that, because they're not. They're literally only saying part of it. So what would happen? It would be like if Matt, or if Jimmy were to just be banging his fist on the table talking about Trump has been it's illegal what he's doing, these illegal orders, the military should be following illegal orders, Trump's giving illegal orders, that's all he's doing, he's a fascist, he's a Nazi, he's a dictator. And then you got some else comes up and says, hey, military, hey, you guys.
Stu, you're breaking up. Stu, you there? Can you hear me? Stu, can you hear me? Because you're breaking up real bad.
We're about to glue the
Oh boy, I can't hear you, Stu. You're frozen. Stu, you're frozen.
Wearing thin, it appears.
Okay, can you hear me now, Stu? You're back non-frozen.
I can. Okay. I'm back. You're back.
Okay. Here's what I'm going to say. Here's what I'm going to say about this. What I'm going to say about this is, if you were somebody that knew that there was a deeper meaning and purpose to all of this, and if you were to get into conspiratorial stuff, if you go back prior to the National Guard, those two heroes getting shot, one dude fighting back with a knife, that's all he had, right? Unbelievable. But if you look, because they were unarmed, not all of the Guard is armed, as most people I think know, right? Like a lot of our embassies overseas.
They probably didn't know, because they've been talking about how Trump's deploying the National Guard to be fascist and to be stomping on people's rights, and they're not even armed. They're just there as a physical deterrent.
Well, if you want to be conspiratorial and you want to use blue-collar logic, Elise Stefanik, who used to be an analyst, she acts like she was some badass with the CIA. Anyways, she was an analyst. Elise Stefanik has been going on the talk shows over a month ago, saying a couple of really weird things from out of the blue. That tagline, "Don't give up the ship." This whole thing that they put forward. There's some weird stuff coming out with a tech billionaire. I forget his name, but also with a balloon company that Kelly had. And Soros is also involved with this tech billionaire, and money for this balloon company prior to Kelly being in the Senate coming from China, right? Okay, so there's a bunch of things in the background that are underneath all of this, okay? But if you look at Elise Stefanik going back over a month, she was leaving comments like, don't give up the ship, which was what this whole piece of propaganda was about. That's what they said at the very end. Don't give up. Don't give up. Don't give up the ship, right? And like Stu said, they're out there saying Trump's giving illegal orders. People are in general. The media's running with it, right? And then they come on and basically tell people, don't follow illegal orders, which everybody in the military already knows, right? What they're telling people is everything Trump is putting out there is illegal. Don't follow any of it, right? Because they're panicking. They're panicking. They need their illegals in this country to keep them in power. This is kind of like a small thing that we're going to talk about. This is the macro version of what's going on in Minnesota. That's what they need these illegals here for. But if you look at what Elise Stefanik was doing, and then she was also saying that she was really concerned that the National Guard was going to get nervous, something was going to go down, and innocent civilians were going to get shot, right? Yep. So if you are a conspiratorial person, this individual who worked for federal agencies, right, overseas, worked with special operations overseas, okay, I wouldn't say he's a real high-level dude, to be honest with you. In fact, very few of them are. You heard us railing about when Afghanistan was going on this show, how most of these interpreters, if they're not U.S. citizens, are turds that were actually working for the other side, right? Yeah. You heard, and that they should have never come here in the first place. We shouldn't have been bringing these people, left our dogs, left our people and everything else to stuff as many of these illegals in this country as we possibly could. Well, they made them legal from Afghanistan, right? To bring harm to the United States. That's what they were done to do, to destroy us. So you put all of this together, right? And you run this attack, right, on these National Guardsmen, and then they're saying, oh, these two National Guardsmen weren't armed, right? Now go back, Elise Stefanik, or not Stefanik, Alyssa Slotkin. I'm calling her Elise Stefanik. Elise Stefanik's a Republican running for governor in New York. Catch me on that, Stu. I'm talking about the wrong woman. Alyssa Slotkin from Michigan, senator from Michigan. Okay? So I have to correct that. Alyssa Slotkin. So Alyssa Slotkin's out there saying she's worried about this. Don't give up the ship, da-da-da-da-da. You run an attack on unarmed National Guard. The whole public says, what the hell? They're unarmed? Arm the National Guard, for crying out loud, so they can protect themselves, right? You arm the National Guard, then you run another operation, right? You run another operation hoping that innocent civilians get hit in the crossfire, right? This is what this other side is doing. If you have blue-collar logic and you have a conspiratorial mind, which you should at this stage.
You know what, Matt? At this stage, I don't think it's a conspiratorial mind. I think it's a logical mind that can follow from A to B to C. And, you know, the shirt that I have is I need new conspiracy theories because all my old ones came true.
That's exactly right. And we can't prove any of this, obviously, but this is blue-collar logic. A plus B equals C, like Stu said. 1 plus 2 equals 3. This is what this is. Especially when you look at what's happened over the last, number of years that have come forward and said, boy, I would have never thought that 9/11 could have possibly been anything but what we were told. Now, I ain't so sure. And I don't think Stu's so sure either, right? So I think we're evolving to that point that we should be suspect about everything. Be dubious. We've said that for a long time. Be dubious, right?
The unfortunate part is, Matt, the powers that be are victims of their own behavior. They have lied about so much, so continuously that if you take what the government tells you at face value, you're an idiot. There's always a game. There's always an angle. There's always a motive. There's always somebody making money off of it. There is nothing that is being done in Washington, D.C. that is being done for, just the virtue of it being the right thing. There just isn't. And if you think that anyone up here has your best interest at heart, you've got a bad realization coming your way.
Yeah, that's what they don't give a shit. They don't give a shit if you're a minority. They don't give a shit if you're gay. They don't give a shit if you're a man. They don't give a shit if you're a woman. They will use you if you are in one of those categories that they label as a minority. They will use you to push their agenda. Once they get their agenda, you're toast, right? These people don't give a shit about anything but power and keeping themselves in a position of power. Okay, so they're talking about court-martialing the potential Kelly. They need to. What was done with that whole public statement is so beyond. And why isn't General Milley? Why isn't he brought in front of a military tribunal as well? When he, in his book, said he was going to warn China ahead of time, when he actually told his counterpart in China that I'll tell you ahead of time if Trump's going to do anything. Right?
Yeah, if Trump's going to do anything, I'll tell you. It's like, wait, what?
So I would look at this thing, and now when you see the story that we just talked about with the Venezuelan boat, right? You see Kelly out there front and center, claiming that now he's being attacked because he's going after the Trump administration for this, right? That's what he's trying to play. This guy's a piece of shit. More dirt needs to be dug up on his balloon company, right? It's not like party balloons. I think it's like, like weather balloons or some shit, right?
And the thing is, Matt,
and the billionaire, the tech billionaire, I don't have his name in front of me, that is behind all of this, along with George Soros. Go ahead.
Well, where they're doing all of these, Trump's illegal orders, Trump isn't going to private first class Snuffy and saying, "Hey, pack your shit. You're going to go to DC." I mean, all of these orders go down through the chain of command. And if you really think that there are all of these generals and colonels and lieutenant colonels and majors and captains and lieutenants, that these things aren't being checked by JAG, that they're not, even before it comes out of Washington, it's that it's not being vetted and being like, hey, yes, okay, this has legal standing, this has, the underpinnings to support what we're doing. They're just, and because they're trying to spin a narrative, they're just acting like Trump is just pulling this stuff out of his butt. And it's like, no, all of this stuff goes through a process to ensure that the underpinnings are there, that it is valid, that it is legal, that, all that is what it's supposed to be. And it's just so frustrating for them just to be up there going and doing their splitting the message in half so that nobody can be, responsible for, saying, oh, well, they said this. No, I only said this part of it. It's what that is? It's fucking cowardice. If that's what you want to say, have the balls to come out and say it, but they won't.
Well, the story that has now been proven false and that the Washington Post lied, right, with all of this. I mean, they lie every time. The Atlantic, the Washington Post, yet if you go on YouTube, every local media outlet runs with that story. Every single, but if you look at the comments below, they're getting hammered saying this is a distraction. This is the fake news trying to push the propaganda. That's all they are. They're propagandists. And they're trying to create a narrative. That's like that. Remember that old video where you start to see, and there are all these local newscasts. It starts with the national, then it goes to the local, and then one screen goes next to another. Next thing you know, there's 5,000 of them all saying almost the exact same thing.
All repeating the exact same thing. Yeah.
They are propagandists. They're trying to create a narrative. They don't care if it's true or not. They want to push the narrative out there and make the general public believe that it is true because so many people are reiterating it. This is what they do. But the beauty of all of this is always go and comment, okay, and tell them what shitbags they are. the mainstream media. When you see those things pop up in Rumble, in YouTube, they're not on Rumble. They're all on YouTube and X and what, right? But go and comment and join in, because they need to be told. They're already being told, but none of us believe you. You suck. Nobody trusts you. This is propaganda being pushed, and you're knowingly pushing false propaganda. Period. Amen.
Well, yeah, because again, they don't care. They get the story out, they get the clicks, and they know that the story, the people that want to tote this story and use it, they don't really care about the truth. It's just a talking point that they can use. And I can guarantee you, 3 months from now, there will be some critter up there on a somewhere in Congress sitting on a committee that'll bring this story up. Well, it was Pete Hegseth did this. Can you believe that? He should be tried for war crimes. It's like, and they will know that it didn't happen, but they don't care either. It's all the political gamesmanship.
I'm trying to see which glasses I have that work the best. These might.
Keep swapping them out.
Well, here's the deal. Every time I go and get a new prescription for my glasses, right? It always seems like something isn't exactly right. Do you go through this process? Because I'm a relatively new glasses user, right? Do you go through that process when you get your new glasses? You put them on, you're like, fuck. I mean, something's not exactly right with this whole thing.
Yeah, right? I've had to go back and get mine redone because they weren't quite right.
Yeah. Well, I'm not quite sure which ones work and which ones don't at this stage. Fuck it. I hate wearing glasses, to be honest with you. I thought, it's not going to be that big of a deal, but
I've been wearing them my whole life, so it doesn't even bother me anymore. But
it is such an ass pain, dude.
Here's the next story, Matt, right here. An illegal immigrant cop previously nabbed by ICE returns to work for an Illinois police department.
Why isn't this municipality being brought up on charges for endangering the public?
Well, I've read through it. There's some things here that just don't quite make sense. All right. He was arrested in October. So right here, illegal immigrant from Montenegro. He overstayed his tourist visa in 2015, 10 years ago.
How the hell did he get a job as a cop? There's no way. He'd have to pass a background. Yeah.
Well, that's what I was going to say, because right here it says, given that his bond was not contested and he remains authorized to work by the federal government, which I don't understand how. How can you be authorized to work by the federal government if you overstayed your visa? And we get down here, did it lock up? And it says, despite his immigration status, he was hired in January because he had a federal work permit and passed all background checks.
So the police are going to hire they're going to hire a guy who's not. How did he pass a background check when it says he's not a citizen of this country?
He's not a citizen, and he had his overstayed visa.
We don't hire people that are here on work visas as sworn police officers. This is insane. This municipality needs to be investigated, and they need to be sued by the federal government. There's something wrong, and now they're shoving it in everybody's face. They're putting in illegal back. You know what this is going to do? Open the door, and you're going to see more and more of this. You're going to see more and more of this bullshit. How does an illegal have arrest authority over an American citizen? And how is he carrying a firearm? There's no fucking way. Yeah, this is bullshit.
There's got to be more to this here, because this just doesn't make sense. It says he overstayed, and maybe there's more to come out, or there's more to it, but he overstayed his tourist visa that required him to leave in 2015. All right, but then he returned to work Monday and will receive a paycheck for the time he missed while he was detained. And it says, like I said, despite his immigration status, despite being illegal,
do we still have a country? This is insane. Where in Illinois is this? I know it's a suburb of Chicago. I grew up.
Hanover Police Department.
Hanover Park. Yeah.
But
okay.
That's what right here. Despite his immigration status, meaning him being here illegally for 10 years, he was hired in January because he had a federal work permit and passed all background checks. So did he do something between the time he overstayed that visa and now to get to sort it out? Because it doesn't say that in the.
Oh shit! You're breaking up again, Stu.
I don't.
You there?
Yeah, it's flaking out. Yeah, I'm here.
Do we have any comments, Stu? Do we have any comment? We haven't gotten any comments tonight.
Let me look here. Hold on. I'm on one monitor, so it takes me a minute. Yeah. So yeah, Freedom agrees with you. He was saying that I'm sure 9/11 is nothing like what we've been told. When we're talking about being skeptical, Troy said he's so skeptical he questions his own reflection in the mirror. And talking about the things being ratioed, and that's true. YouTube hid the dislike. It used to just be you had like and dislike. Now I don't think it's not that way anymore.
No, you can't. They have the dislike button, but it doesn't do anything. And so if you look up the Green Beret Life in YouTube, if you put it in, just like we have it, the Green Beret L.I for living freedom every day, right? If you put that in, you will not get our channel. We're like 40 down. There'll be everything else in front of it. This is how YouTube destroyed the channel. This is how they did it. This started like 4 years ago. But ratio. YouTube, Google is a disgrace. It's an absolute disgrace. I know we're broadcasting on it. We're broadcasting on it for what reason? To take people from YouTube and encourage them to go over to Rumble. I see people bitching left and right, not just in the political sphere or even in the gun sphere. They're going after everybody that doesn't toe some leftist Marxist narrative. And quit bitching about it and go to fucking Rumble, period. Go to Rumble, right? You're not going to take them on unless you say, okay, you don't want us here. We en masse move over to Rumble. So it's one of those things. I don't know. I just had a little rant there I had to get out when you talked about being ratioed.
Yeah, this story with this illegal immigrant, unless there's something missing between 2015 and January when he was hired on, I don't see how he was hired with his background check and he's here illegally. What federal work permit are you talking about?
This was an activist
permit.
You don't hire people on federal work permits to be sworn police officers. They don't have arrest power over U.S. citizens. They just don't. There's no way I'm going to get pissed just talking about this. There's no way that this son of a bitch has any right to be a police officer, and they ought to go after the whole municipality portion. Whether it's from their mayor, whether it's their city manager. I don't know who the hell did this, but something's coming down from their city council or something. They all need to be looked into. And whoever was responsible for this, including the yes man chief, here's how things work in most municipalities. Okay. The city manager runs the city, not the mayor. Okay. The city manager does, right? The city manager usually hires the police chief, right? And the police chief is usually a yes man to that city manager. Yeah. Usually, okay? Some real good police departments and good city managers, that's not the way it is. It's, hey, you're the expert. You run the police department the way you're supposed to run the police department.
Most of them, it's a political appointment.
It's a political appointee. And so then you have a yes man chief. So guess what you get? You get yes men all underneath them in leadership positions, the exact opposite of the people that should be in leadership positions, right? And this is part of the reason why so many cops working in different municipalities are miserable, right? They're miserable because it's the shitty chain of command. And you can say the same thing in the military. There's a shitty chain of command in the military too. It starts at the very top. It starts at the very top. So now we've got good leadership and we're starting to do some changes in that chain of command. That's what that whole speech with Hegseth was all about. We're not going to have fat generals. We're not going to have fat colonels. People are going to meet a standard. They're going to meet a high standard the way it used to be, right?
And my God, you would think he was up there on stage kicking puppies the way people were just clutching pearls.
Yeah.
And my favorite was whenever somebody was like, well, yeah, there wasn't any cheering or clapping in the audience at all. They just sat there. It's like, yeah, it's all officers and military. They're not freaking toddlers or elementary school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we've lost a lot of military. I mean, you can see what they did. You can see what they did to the federal agencies. They desperately were trying to do this to the military. That's why they got rid of standards. They were ruining special operations. They were ruining combat arms. They were ruining the whole military. That's why people were showing up, and Sikhs were allowed to have their head wraps. That's not allowed. That's not allowed. They're saying, religious exception. So now everybody's got a religious exception. So you've got rampant, goofy ass beards all throughout the military now. You've got openly transvestite officers running around. They're all being removed. I heard a number the other day, and it was in the thousands. I couldn't believe it. There was there were thousands of transgender in the military. I mean, this is destruction from within.
Well, yeah.
Everybody knows it.
Matt, they were literally allowing them in and then paying for surgeries and the drugs and everything else. And that was part of the draw of it when they started doing that. They were paying for all of that stuff. But
who was the guy who he got some sensitive information and put it on a Lady Gaga CD, and then he got caught? What was his name? Do you remember this? It was about 2010.
You're breaking up, Matt. We've got.
You're
breaking up. What was it?
Who was the guy around 2009, 2010 who he got some low level, but it was secret information, and put it on a Lady Gaga CD? Do you remember this? And then was trying to traffic it somehow. Do you remember that?
Oh yeah. He was the one that went to prison and then went to Leavenworth and came out as transgender and all that, right?
Yes. So if you look into his past, this dude, until they took back "Don't Ask, Don't Tell" bullshit, right? Allowing openly gay people to join the military, he was a gay activist against the military. That's what he did. So when I said this back then, right? His whole job and purpose of joining the military was to do what he did, to try to hurt the military. Because this was the guy out protesting outside of recruitment stations and everything else as a gay activist, So there's so many, you've got to peel the layers back, because nothing, as the media, as we've already talked about tonight, is pushing to you as the story. You've got to take that story, how they got Osama bin Laden. Okay. That story, if you were in special operations or if you were in the military for a long time, that story was bullshit from the moment you heard it, right? The whole thing just sniffed of bullshit, right? So anything that you're given like that, it's like, wait a second. Okay. You've got to go back and see, what are they trying to do, right? And what are all the different elements of this story that are going to get them to what you think they're trying to do? So be dubious. Be absolutely dubious.
Be skeptical, for sure.
So now we got the Minnesota story, right?
Yep. The Somali. You want to? Well, we kind of talked about that. Was there anything else you wanted to add on the fraud deal?
Okay, so we've talked about on this show many times about the child care fraud that was committed by Somalis, hundreds of millions of dollars. They never went after them. We've been bitching about that for years, pretty much since this show started, right? So you had that, okay? And in recent years, the Somali population, I'm going to take a few steps back and explain as I know how this all worked. I've said this before, but I'm doing it again, okay? The Somali population, anytime we go somewhere and get involved in some bullshit deal, right? it seems like we have to bring everybody from the third world back with us, right?
Yeah.
So, and there was no way Somalis were ever going to assimilate into our society. You have to understand Islam, especially radical elements of Islam, okay? Salafist Islam. You got to understand there is no room for margin. You know, that this is why different sects of Islam hate each other, right? This is why they hate everybody else, because everybody who does not believe their specific sect of Islam, right, is a non-believer, an infidel, right? So they're coming over here to have as many kids as possible, to rape our system, right? Take as much money as they can, and to destroy us, right? Ultimately trying to convert, right? And you're seeing them have some success in places like Dearborn, Michigan, Minneapolis, Minnesota, London, England, right? All throughout Europe, okay? France, Paris, France, where now they're starting to talk about implementing elements of Sharia law, right?
Yep.
So
having their own I was going to say parallel, not even parallel, but their own separate court system.
Yeah. So when you look at this, and you have to understand when you're working with these people, if you're overseas and you're trying to get something done, you'll meet some of the most polite and nicest people in the world. They'll smile to you. They'll tell you everything they think you want to hear. But guess what? What they're doing is filling you with bullshit. A deal is not a deal. A promise isn't a promise. Their word isn't their word. Why? Because their religion tells them that if you're a non-believer, they can rape, lie, rob, steal, murder, right? That's perfectly fine to a non-believer, right? This is what you have to understand, okay? So I'm glossing over this, but these are like elements that everybody can understand, right? And I'm not saying that every single one of these people are like this, right? But you're starting to see what's going on. So we had the child care fraud going on there years ago. They originally settled in San Diego. Somebody from the state of Minnesota got the idea. How can we stay? Everything is about staying in power. And this is going to lead into this whole story. Everything is about staying in power. So how can we stay in power? We know we have, if you're looking at Minnesota, we've got Minneapolis, St. Paul, and we pretty much own that if we're leftists, right? We own Minneapolis, St. Paul, where the base of the population is, but you've got a lot of outlying. You have small communities to mid-sized communities throughout Minnesota, like Mankato, Faribault, Wilmer, and on and on and on and on and on. And those outlying communities aren't as solid blue as Minneapolis, St. Paul, right? So how do we fix that? Okay, so there are small businesses that have factories that employ the local people in these towns. This is how they're doing it, okay? That employ these local people. And this is the corruption of big fucking business and big fucking government, okay? So what they do is they go to a company, i.e. Hormel, Genio, companies like that, right? And they say, hey, okay, yeah, we can provide you an unending stream of cheap third world labor, right? If you put them in your factory in Wilmer, Minnesota, right? And they're like, oh, well, okay, so what do you mean cheap labor? You can basically pay them minimum wage or somewhere close to minimum wage. Why? Well, how are they going to be able to live if we pay them at minimum wage? And don't worry about it. We're going to take
housing, welfare, SNAP.
We're going to subsidize everything. We're going to give them housing, education, food, spending money, you name it. We're going to give it to them. Healthcare, the whole 9 yards. So basically, you bring in the third worlder, you have them kick out the Americans that are working there, okay, that they're paying $20 an hour. You bring in the third worlder and you pay them $13 an hour, right? And then the state government comes in and subsidizes that third. So it's like he's making like 70 grand a year. You think I'm exaggerating? No, I'm not.
Nope.
So they'll subsidize the shit out of him. Why would they do this? Okay, because you're basically pushing out. You're pushing out the traditional Minnesotan that's worked and lived there and maybe been there for many generations, right?
And you're buying the vote.
Permanently changing the voting demographic of that area. And that is how they fucked up Minnesota. And this is how they're fucking up Wisconsin and other states in this country. That's how they do it. Okay. So now fast forward. So they have created such a group because now you get NGOs involved. Okay. And I'm Catholic, and it breaks my heart to say this. Catholic charities, Lutheran ministries, every single one of these major churches has a charitable arm, and they have also partnered up with the federal government, right? Especially under the Biden and Obama and the Clinton administration.
Because somehow their charitable arm has turned into a money-making arm. They're making
exactly
money.
What it is, in the name of charity. So what they start doing is they go back to these countries where these people are from and start bringing in their fucking families, right?
Chain migration.
I'm getting pissed because they're ruining our country. They are ruining our country. Okay. So now they use the propagandist arm of the media, entertainment, you name it, local school districts, municipalities, and everything else. If you bitch about it, guess what you are? You are racist. You're a bigot. You are a homophobe. You are whatever ist or phobe they can come up with. That's what you are. And of course, most Americans aren't any of these things. And they don't want to be called that because guess what? They can now ruin your job via social media. They can go after your work. They can do whatever. They can destroy your life. And this is what they've been doing as they've been stuffing people in, bringing them over. And these NGOs that are doing it in the guise of charities are making billions of dollars. Okay. As we've already seen. Okay.
Well, the thing is, Matt, with like that chain migration is, it's hard enough for someone in their 20s to come over to another country and establish themselves and work and support themselves. But then via the chain migration, they're bringing over grandparents and aunts and uncles and whomever.
Well, here's the other aspect
never
to that.
Going to be self-sufficient.
No, and they're putting them on your Social Security. So you and I are probably not going to get Social Security, Stu. And anybody our age are probably not going to get Social Security because we're bringing people that never paid a dime into Social Security. We're bringing them over here. And even the young people that can't work, right? They're going on Social Security. We're all getting fucked, okay? We cannot be the welfare arm for the rest of the world, okay? So they bring all these people in here, and it's a big money play, okay? So they're getting all this money. They're getting all of these welfare benefits. They're changing the voting demographics, right? Okay. And now they start to become a voting bloc amongst themselves. So here's what happened in Minnesota. And this is what came out in the story. And this is the crux of this whole story to begin with, because Tim Walz, okay, who panders. If you saw any of the stuff with Jacob Fry and the recent mayoral race in Minneapolis, right, that just happened at the beginning of this month, right? You saw him giving speeches where he's reading off a teleprompter phonetically speaking Somali, right? They've changed the flag in the state of Minnesota to a Somali flag. And Waltz has come out and said, we had a racist flag. How is our flag racist? They had a racist flag and we changed it. They changed it to a Somali flag. This was all pandering to the Somali community. Okay. Now, mind you, I heard a statistic that every Somali we bring to our country costs the American taxpayer $1 million over their lifetime. $1 million. So they're never a net benefit. Don't listen to this bullshit. They're never coming over and helping our economy. They're a drain on our economy. Okay. And not only that, they don't want to be Americans. They don't want to assimilate. They don't want to work hard. They want to learn our language. They don't want to do any of this shit. They want to steal. That's what I don't want to say all of them, and I don't want to brush because you got to give each individual a chance, right? But so many of them have already done this. So now they start setting up these deals via the state, and they're starting to get federal money, especially during COVID. So now, in addition to the child care fraud, which they've been stealing for years and years and years, okay? So now they're setting up what Stu talked about, and they have restaurants, right? One was called Safari, and they're all Somali-owned restaurants, right? Where they were saying they were giving 5,000 meals to kids a day. They weren't giving any meals to kids a day. They were saying this, right? And they were making up some bullshit deals with names that they're getting off of baby.com, right? And so they're saying they're feeding all of these kids. Then there was an autism thing. Every single one of these Somali kids had autism. So they were getting money for that. And what does it all add up to? Billions, billions, and billions of dollars in the year 2023. Remittances, primarily from Minnesota, but from the United States to Somalia, totaled $1.7 billion alone. So that's not the money that people are keeping and buying Porsches and luxury clothes and luxury homes with. Nope.
That's money they're sending back home.
That's just money they're sending back home. And a big chunk of that goes to who? Al-Shabaab, the local affiliate for ISIS, right? That's where that's going. Okay. So now, just recently, you had and I'm getting to the real bombshell of the story. So recently, you had a man who was convicted by a jury, okay, a Somali man, of stealing something. It was between $7 and tens of millions of dollars. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. He owned homes here and apparently in Turkey and some other places. He had a Porsche, luxury clothes, the whole 9 yards. The jury convicted him because it was welfare fraud, right? The judge, the female 30-something judge, overturned the conviction. And the guy gets to keep the Porsche, the luxury homes, the whole 9 yards, blatantly stealing from us. So what happened this week that is the fucking bombshell, right? By the way, I want to tell you something else too. And I got to be a little careful with this. The average IQ in Somalia is what, Stu?
It's like 82?
No. 67. It is 67.
Shit.
Do you know what legally retarded is?
Yeah, it's 70.
70. It's 70. Okay. So enough said with that. And also in Somalia, it's clans. It's a different. There's lots of inbreeding and all of this going on. That is probably leads to the low IQ and everything else. I'm not saying any of this to be racist or anything else. We are talking facts, okay? And you can go and check my stats. Go and check my facts, okay? I'm not saying this applies to everybody, okay? But if you look, I think the Netherlands just recently put out crime statistics, right? Yeah. By immigrants and Somali. The Somalis are either one or two. And over there, they're saying they cost us X amount of dollars every year. They cost us money, which we're finding out here over a lifetime, $1 million. It's been some of the stats that have been.
That's what I'm trying to figure out is how can they sit there and say, it's a net benefit for the immigration? Like, how can you say, how can you quantify that?
It's bullshit that they're going to lie to the general public, hoping if they say it enough and appealing on, you don't want to be a racist, do you?
Yeah, don't argue.
No, we're just to say, most Americans are not racist. And if somebody comes from Somalia that wants to come here and become an American and work hard, not coming here for the handouts, not coming here to steal, right? But coming here to become an American, I think we'd most all welcome them with open arms. You want to become an American? Absolutely. And there are some that do that. And I hate for them to get dragged into this because there are some good people that are Somali, right? But to say that there isn't a huge element of that population that's here to destroy us, if I didn't say that, it would be dishonest. Okay? Yeah. So you're starting to see what's going down. Now they've become such a powerful voting bloc that housing, HUD, Housing and Urban Development, for lack of a better term, for the agency in the state of Minnesota, wanted to start investigating all of this fraud that they started seeing. Because, mind you, they're estimating the fraud to be between $8 and $10 billion. Okay?
Right.
It's unfathomable how much money this is, okay?
It's amazing.
So now, people from Housing and Urban Development, it's another agency in the state of Minnesota. I'm getting that wrong, but you follow what I'm saying.
That's their what they do. That's their result the same.
So Health and Human Services. That's what it is. Health and Human Services. Okay? I think. Yeah. I'm touching on so many subjects here. So I've had a few brain injuries. You guys don't know. So anyways, they started approaching Tim Walz, according to them, whistleblowers, right? And a lot of whistleblowers, right? And they're saying, hey, we approached him about what we saw as blatant frickin' fraud, right? And it's like, not only did he not want to pursue it, as if we were pushing it to do an investigation, he was coming after us, right? And it's like, what's going on here? Well, here, let me tell you what's most like. Remember, we're going to get into some blue collar logic, right, Stu? Right? Blue collar logic, 1 + 1 = 2. These programs were designed from the very beginning to be purloined by the Somali community because they hold so much power in downtown Minneapolis and St. Paul, and now all of these outlying communities, right? They were designed to be stolen using taxpayer money, okay? In order to do what? Keep the elitist Democrat establishment that has run Minnesota off of that cliff we were talking about before in power. And that's exactly what they've done. And now you're starting to see the evidence that this guy was neck deep in it, because this guy, okay, I think this guy has an IQ that's lower than 67. He's a freaking moron.
Well, it's basically the same thing they were using USAID for on an international level is the same thing they're using these programs for on that local level. Is they're using it to redirect and reallocate funds to what they want. They're basically using, like you said, to steal the money and put it here and make it look as clean as they can until someone starts going and poking around, and then you realize how much of a game it is. But we had Freedom had posted, he said that the Minnesota AG Keith Ellison protected the fraudsters, according to some reports.
Oh, for sure he did. Keith Ellison is, by the way, former congressman, first Muslim congressman, right? He's one of these Nation of Islam converts, right? As far as I know, right? And became AG in the state of Minnesota and has been an absolute disaster. But it's looking right now that the headmaster of this whole thing is Tim Walz. And look at him changing the flag in the state of Minnesota to the Somali flag. Look at the pander to that community. Look at Jacob Fry trying to speak Somali to that community. We have cops now in Ramsey County that are saying, Somali cops that are saying, we are here to serve Somalis first. I'm paraphrasing, right? But that came out several weeks ago, right?
Well, even Ilhan Omar was saying she's a congressman representing Somalia.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. And you see that Omar Fateh.
Listen.
You see that Omar Fateh, right? You look at him and hear what he was saying, and he was only speaking in Somali. And what was he doing? Somalia. That's all you could hear. Somalia. And people waving Somali flags, the whole 9 yards. It's hard to differentiate between the Somali flag and the Minnesota flag. So could some of them been waving the Minnesota flag? I'm sure, right? But this is a disaster, because this place 15 years ago, Minneapolis, St. Paul, state of Minnesota, was absolutely beautiful. When I came back from the military, I couldn't believe it. I could not believe it. I couldn't believe it. And people that say, okay, that oh, you're just upset because, no, these are people that are non-Americans that don't want to be American, never desire to be American, and are here to change our way of life. And if you understand, especially veterans out there for sure understand this, okay? If you understand Islam and what it's all about, it all makes sense. It all makes sense. And even these attacks with these Afghans that we're now seeing, this was all intentional destruction from within. It was all that way. You could even say You could even say all the bullshit that went on from us toppling our ally, Hosni Mubarak in Egypt, right, which is the most populous country in the whole Middle East. Iran is the second. To what we did in Libya, none of this makes any sense. To what we did in Syria, none of this makes any sense, right? But you could argue, if you were conspiratorial, was that done to basically flood Western Europe and the United States with third world immigrants that would permanently change the culture and the makeup and the demographics of those countries, right? So,
oh yeah, well, Matt, you know, for years, the Democrat talking point has been, you know, the U.S. needs to be brought down a peg or two because, you know, we don't deserve what we have. You know, it's not fair that the rest of the world isn't. So they've just decided, instead of, you know, raising up the rest of the world, which you can't do with some places because of their culture, the way that they govern themselves, the corruption inherent in the systems that they use to operate. Instead of trying to, you know, raise them up, we'll just tear down the United States so that everything's even, because that way it's fair. But we have a few comments before we shut down. Was there anything else you wanted to bring up?
I want to reiterate this because I'm not attacking Somalis at all, and I can't repeat it enough. If people want to come here from Somalia and become Americans, and they want to assimilate, and they want to work hard, and they want to be crime free, we welcome you with open arms, right? I think from anywhere in the world, we welcome you with open arms if that's what you want to do. What's becoming very evident in Minnesota, okay, that has happened is we're enabling fraud and theft from the people, the taxpayers of Minnesota. And I do want to say there are good Somalis, right? And it's unfair that they're getting wrapped up in this. But when you sit back, you have to understand that we have a real problem with the Somali population in the state of Minnesota. There is a real problem, and it needs to be addressed. So, like I said, I don't want to come off as we're saying everybody is involved with this, but there is a big chunk of that population that is, and it needs to be dealt with. And as far as I'm concerned, if you came to this country, okay, and you got asylum, and you even became a citizen, a naturalized citizen, but you've committed fraud, if you've committed, we've all seen the videos of them driving around taking people's write-in ballots and then filling them out. We've seen it. It's on video, right?
Yeah.
If you've committed any of these, you no longer, as far as I'm concerned, and I think this is what the Trump administration is saying, have a right to be in our country. You have ruined it for yourself, and you need to go back to where you came from. And we only want people here that love this country and want to be Americans. We're not shutting the door on anybody. We want to have America open to everybody that wants to come here, work hard, assimilate, become Americans, not come here and change our culture and steal, commit crime, and victimize the society that's trying to be kind to you. Period. Amen. I hope I'm coming across that way and not as harsh as it sounded before.
Well, no, you're absolutely right. And when you're criticizing the negative elements in a group, and someone wants to get their panties twisted because you're criticizing members of that group, well, sorry, you know, it's there are bad elements in every group, and if you can't call out that bad element, then maybe that makes you the racist. If you can't, you know,
exactly. And I hope we've pounded that in. We're not saying everybody. There are good people involved, and I don't want them getting caught up in this. But the ones that are guilty need to go. They need to go.
But Freedom wrote in. He said that that Minnesota DHS group wrote to Kamala Harris to warn her when she was picking her, to warn her about Waltz when she was picking her VP.
I don't think she had any say in the pick of her VP.
I don't think she had much say in anything. Freedom also said it looks like the GOP candidate is the projected winner of the special election in Tennessee.
Fantastic. Thank you, Freedom. Thank you.
You pulled it off, Matt. Good job. You got people out there to the poll.
Yeah, we pulled it off. Right. And I want to say, look, I'm not saying, I kind of feel bad about pointing out the IQ level of Somali. It is what it is. I'm not saying that I'm smarter than anybody else. Okay. I'm not, for sure. Okay. Stu might be, I'm not. It is what it is. So if you can't speak,
I can barely tie my shoes most days. I've got the Skechers slip-ons.
Yeah, exactly. I need to get those.
They're not bad. So, I'm a fan.
Yeah. So, is there anything else you want to add, Stu? Are there any comments that we need to put in before we sign off?
No, I think that was it. Let me double check. Yeah. Well, Troy said hopefully we don't have any phony ballots showing up at 2 a.m. But as of right now, the Republicans.
Exactly. Was that Troy or Freedom that sent that information?
Freedom sent the information about the candidate being the projected winner.
Right.
Troy made the comment about the late arrival of the ballots.
Perfect. Well, you guys, I thank you for being here again. I thank you for being a patriot. We do this every night, right? I want to apologize again for last week. Like I said, we've never claimed to be professional.
No, but we had Matt was stuck in a blizzard. I had taken vacation time and honestly completely lost track of what day it was. And Matt called me. He's like, "Hey, where are you?" I'm like, "Holy crap, it's Tuesday!" And we completely dropped the ball on that.
Shit happens. And the worst thing we think about is people showing up waiting for the show, and we're not there. That's so they don't make this real easy. Okay. If it was just on YouTube, it would be one thing. It's not easy when you have StreamYard and you're at multiple platforms because you got to jump through all these hoops. You need keys. You need all of this bullshit. So I'm hoping technology
it takes
helps
me about 20 minutes to a half hour to set everything up to get everything on between Odysee and Rumble and YouTube and it's a pain in the ass. But like Matt said, we appreciate everyone showing up, and we will see you guys next Tuesday.
Live in freedom every day.